England were 5 minutes away. 5 minutes from a first World Cup final since 1966, and somehow they still found a way to lose it. Now the reaction is pouring in, and it's not just fans. Former players, pundits, and England legends are all picking apart exactly how this collapse happened against Argentina at FIFA 2026. Harry Kane looked shattered walking off that pitch. Jude Bellingham looked furious, and the voices on the panel afterward weren't holding back either. So what actually went wrong? Was this bad luck against a great team, or something England has done to themselves before, more than once? And why does this specific loss feel different to so many people who watched it? This isn't a story about England being knocked out. Getting beaten by the defending champions in a World Cup semifinal is nothing to be ashamed of on its own. This is a story about how they got knocked out and why some of the biggest names in English football are saying it didn't have to happen this way. So, what's really happening here? Let's set the scene first, because the context matters as much as the scoreline. England went into this semifinal in Atlanta against Argentina, the reigning champions, with a golden chance in front of them. Anthony Gordon put them ahead in the 55th minute, finishing off a low cross after a build-up involving Harry Kane. For most of the second half, England were sitting on a one-goal lead against Lionel Messi and one of the most dangerous attacking teams left in the tournament. Then, it slipped away. Enzo Fernandez equalized in the 85th minute, set up by Messi. 7 minutes later, deep into stoppage time, Lautaro Martinez headed home the winner, again assisted by Messi. Final score, 2-1 to Argentina, who advanced to face Spain in the final. For England, this marks yet another near miss on the biggest stage. They lost the Euros final in both 2024 and 2020. The last time they reached a World Cup semifinal, back in 2018, they lost by the exact same scoreline, after also scoring first. Manager Thomas Tuchel took charge of this team specifically to try to break that pattern, and for a long stretch of Wednesday's match, it looked like it might finally happen. It didn't, and that's where the reaction from England's football community got loud, fast. Here's where things get interesting. The core criticism, and it's coming from almost every direction, centers on what England did after taking the lead. Once Gordon scored, Tuchel's side appeared to retreat into a deeper, more defensive shape, trying to protect the one-goal advantage, rather than push for a second. Defender Dan Burn admitted afterward that the team became passive once they went ahead, saying they sat a little too deep and stopped applying the pressure that had worked well earlier. Mark Guehi echoed that sentiment, saying England should have kept pushing instead of shifting into a defensive mindset the moment they scored. Tuchel himself defended the approach in his post-match comments, insisting the team had no regrets and that the performance was one of their best of the tournament under the circumstances. He argued the issue wasn't structural, that England simply became too passive and couldn't win the ball back often enough once Argentina turned up the pressure. But that explanation hasn't satisfied the pundits. Sky Sports commentator Gary Neville put it bluntly, saying England will probably never get a better chance to reach a final than the one they had on Wednesday, and that the team got too narrow and too deep in the closing stages, drawing a direct comparison to how they lost the Euros final against Italy. On the BBC panel, Wayne Rooney, Joe Hart, and Micah Richards spent much of halftime and the post-match breakdown dissecting the same issue from a different angle, questioning why a team with attacking talent like Bellingham and Kane on the pitch chose to sit back rather than look to close the game out with a second goal. Think about it. This wasn't a team getting overwhelmed for 90 minutes. England controlled long stretches of that match. The frustration isn't about losing to a better team, it's about the sense that England beat themselves in the final half hour by changing an approach that had actually been working. But that's only part of the story. This matters because it fits directly into a pattern English football has now seen repeat itself across multiple major tournaments. The bigger issue isn't one bad game plan, it's what that game plan represents. Go back to the 2018 World Cup semifinal. England scored first against Croatia, then sat back, lost control of the midfield, and eventually lost in extra time. The Euro 2020 final against Italy followed a similar shape. England ahead early, then increasingly cautious, eventually conceding and losing on penalties. The Euro 2024 final against Spain wasn't identical, but again featured a team unable to press home an advantage against high-quality opposition in the biggest moment. What makes 2026 different is the personnel. This wasn't the England squad of 2018, still finding its footing on the international stage. This was a team built around Bellingham, one of the best midfielders in the world, and Kane, England's all-time leading scorer, both at what should be the peak of their careers. The talent gap that used to explain these losses isn't really there anymore, which is exactly why the reaction has been so pointed. Pundits aren't asking whether England have good enough players. They're asking why a talented team keeps making the same tactical choice in the same type of moment. Gary Neville's comparison to the Euros final wasn't a throwaway line. It was pointing directly at a pattern of shrinking instead of expanding when England get in front late in major tournament matches. That's a much harder problem to fix than a single substitution or a single formation tweak. And it's why this loss is generating a different kind of conversation than a simple credit to Argentina. Now let's talk about what this actually felt like for the players and the fans who were there. For Harry Kane, this was about as raw as a post-match interview gets. He described the feeling as gutting and said the players gave everything out there, only for it to slip away in the closing stages. This was Kane's best and realistically last chance at a World Cup final at this stage of his career, and that weight was visible in how he spoke afterward. For Bellingham, the frustration showed up on the pitch itself, in a tense moment with an Argentine player after the final whistle, a reflection of just how physical and heated this semi-final had become by the end. Both benches were feeling it. Both fan bases were feeling it. Inside Atlanta Stadium, this was billed as one of the highest security, highest tension matches of the entire tournament, and it lived up to that billing. Argentina's supporters outnumbered England's inside the venue, and the atmosphere carried that old rivalry weight the entire night, right up until the final whistle turned it into pure heartbreak for one side and pure release for the other. Would this affect your excitement for the rest of FIFA 2026? For England fans, probably yes, at least for a little while. Watching a golden opportunity disappear in the final 10 minutes is a specific kind of pain that doesn't fade quickly, even with a third-place playoff against France still to come. So where does England go from here? The most immediate outcome is the third-place match against France, a game neither side particularly wants to play, but one that still offers Tuchel a chance to send his squad home with something to build on rather than nothing at all. The bigger picture question is whether this result triggers real change in how England approaches these moments going forward, or whether it becomes another data point in a pattern that keeps repeating every couple of years. Best case, this group learns from exactly what went wrong in that final half hour and carries a different mentality into the next major tournament. Worst realistic case, the conversation happening right now among Rooney, Neville, and the rest of the pundit world becomes the same conversation people have again after the next near miss. Which side of that debate you land on probably depends on how much faith you still have in this specific core of players. Bellingham and Kane aren't going anywhere immediately, and neither is Tuchel, at least based on his comments defending the performance. Which country do you think benefits most from England's exit? Argentina clearly gets a favorable draw removed from their side of the bracket, but Spain now inherits a confident, battle-tested champion looking to become just the second team in 70 years to defend a World Cup title. Nothing about England's long-term direction is settled by one semi-final loss, but the reaction from its own legends suggests this isn't being written off as bad luck. To sum it up,
England led Argentina in a World Cup semifinal, turned passive after scoring, and got caught by 2 late goals from the reigning champions. Former players and current pundits have been unified in pointing to the tactical approach after the lead as the real story of the defeat, not a lack of quality. It's now the 3rd major tournament in a row where England have come agonizingly close to a final, only to fall short in the closing stages. What do you think really cost England this game? Was it the tactics, the mentality, or just Argentina and Messi being too good in the moments that mattered? Let me know your take in the comments, and if you want the 3rd place playoff breakdown along with a full look ahead to the final, get subscribed so you don't miss it.